everyone! So, over the past few years, I've gotten a lot of comments, most misguided, but some straight up rude, asking me why I didn't apply to Harvard, telling me I made a huge mistake by not applying to more Ivies, and today I'm hoping to show you why this is a little bit crazy, and really not the case. Before we get into it, this video is sponsored by Prep Scholar. I always recommend them to all my friends and the entire internet. They guarantee a 160-point increase in your score or your money back. Their online program is designed by top-scoring test takers who really take into account what the test looks like, not just the content on it, so you can be sure you're getting questions that really match College Board's style of writing tests. They have a question bank of thousands of questions and really helpful videos with all the concepts you'll need to succeed. I highly recommend them. You can go to the description down below for $50 off their ACT or SAT test prep course, or check out their one-on-one tutoring service if you need that extra little bit of motivation. So, let's talk today about how to build your list of schools that you want to be applying to. Tip number 1 is to start on this early. It's important to always be reflecting on what interests you, and what makes you happy. What type of job do you see yourself having in the future, and what type of education will you need to get there? You can start brainstorming more about these things now, but you should be passively thinking about this throughout your entire life. But once you get to the summer before your senior year of high school, it's important to consider the approximate rank of school that you could realistically be accepted to with all of your scores, your academic background. I know not everyone has crazy opportunities in their backyard, and you definitely don't need to go on a million college campus tours, but I would recommend doing a little bit of research and reflection throughout your final years of high school, even if you don't have the means to visit campuses. A lot of schools will have virtual tours that you can do just to get a sense of their environment. So I recommend making a very large and detailed spreadsheet for all of your research, and maybe keeping a notebook as well, if you like having a way to physically write things down. This spreadsheet was one of the most helpful things for me during this process, since I love to stay organized, and something as big of a decision as where you plan on spending the next 4 years of your life is pretty important. So here's a tour of my spreadsheet, even though I kind of didn't end up keeping up with it near the end of the process. On the first sheet, I have a list of all of the schools I felt like I should research. Since I knew I wanted to do something in the realm of engineering, and more specifically chemical engineering, I looked at a lot of those particular top college lists online. The important thing is to not take any of those as gospel. They exist more for you to get a general idea of the top 20 or so best schools in whatever you want to study. I also got my parents' and my friends' input of what schools they thought would be good for me, and I went solely based on vibes for some of the schools I included on this tab. On this page, I compiled all the super general statistics that you see schools talk about so much. My color key here is also pretty important. The purple schools were my favorite reach and match schools, I guess you could say. The yellow schools were schools I'm seriously considering adding to that list, and these color rankings were based on all of the research from all of the tabs on this spreadsheet, I think. Now, this is my academics tab. This is where those online ranking lists come in handy. Just in case I changed my mind about my major, I had a few related categories of other types of engineerings I was really interested in, and just the general engineering rank overall. As you can probably tell, I was pretty set on some form of engineering at this stage, but if you're undecided or you haven't decided this insanely specifically yet on what you want to do, that's completely fine. Just don't judge the schools as heavily on their rankings for specific departments as much as I did. The reason there's 3 numbers in each of these boxes is because I looked at 3 different lists. You can see how much each one differs and how it's not good to go solely based on these numbers. A lot of the schools just pay to be on these lists too, so they're not entirely accurate. I honestly can't remember what exact online lists I used, but one of them I know was the US News list. That's like the most popular one. So for environment, I did a deep dive for each of the schools I was researching. Where you're going to be living for multiple years is important. So in addition to things like gender ratio and diversity, it's good to keep climate and location in mind. Like, if you're used to 70-degree weather all year, going to Michigan Tech might be a little bit of a shock for you. Or if you really want to have a campus snowball fight every winter, then the UCs might not be a good fit for you. This is where I started to go on the various virtual tours that schools offered. Definitely go on actual tours if you have the means to, and if there's not a literal pandemic sweeping the nation, but I found that the virtual versions were really fun, and they helped me get a good idea of each of the schools' vibes. It also helped me to take schools off of my list, since at this point my list was really large, and you're trying to eliminate places you wouldn't absolutely love to be. I recommend not just looking at a school's website and the college-y websites that tell you all this stuff, but also looking at vlogs from students who actually go there. Hey, if you're interested in the University of Michigan, I have a few vlogs from my time here. Just watching videos about the different schools' cultures also just happens to be a really fun way to waste an afternoon. And it's not really wasting it if you're doing college research, right? Alright, so my next tab is all of the clubs and opportunities that a school offers. I was particularly interested in undergraduate research opportunities and seeing how common things like career fairs were to get internships. I also brainstormed some of my favorite hobbies and extracurriculars that I'd want to continue in college, and I even included some things that I was only vaguely interested in maybe picking up in college. And so I looked to see if every college had what I wanted, and if there were any noteworthy things about that college's opportunities. I'd have to say that this tab was probably the least useful out of all of my tabs, just because it's hard to list out categories of everything that you're interested in, and some schools might have cool opportunities that interest you that don't necessarily fit into one of those columns. That's kind of why I liked the notebook, because I would just do a stream of consciousness deep dive of everything that I was interested in that was cool about a school. But doing a spreadsheet like this is definitely a good place to start. And obviously you would personalize this to your interests if you're making this spreadsheet. Okay, so this next tab looks a little bit like that one scene out of A Beautiful Mind with all the newspaper clippings. I know, but I had my little system, okay? Like, at some point in my life, this made complete sense to me, and now I can barely describe what's happening to you. So along the top here was every AP class that I'd taken or planned to take at that point, and in each box is the lowest number on the AP test that you need to get credit, and how many credits you would get in parentheses. I definitely could have organized this better, I'm so sorry. This tab is kind of extra, but it's really important when you're factoring in if you'd be able to graduate early, or what course load you'd have to take every semester, since different schools accept different amounts of AP credits. This can be really important to consider for financial reasons, and just if you want to start working or going to grad school a little bit earlier. The reds are where credit wouldn't be accepted for a certain test, and the greens are what I would get credit for. And this is specific to my major that I was planning on doing in these schools too. The notes box is for all the special notes, since every school had a different process, and they can get weird or have catches to them. Like, Caltech's in particular was like a Hogwarts system. I don't even know what they're doing. Somebody who goes there will have to explain that to me, but anyway, for your top choice schools at this point, I would also recommend looking at some sample schedules for your intended major to see what your course load will look like and get a feel for how things would be if you actually went there. Now finally, we've made it to the application tab. For each of these schools that I was considering, I planned out everything that I would need to apply. This is super important to do as early as possible, even if you don't have your entire list of schools ready. Like, maybe even start this before the summer, before your senior year starts, since you need to figure out who you're gonna get rec letters from, and some teachers will only write them if you ask them before the summer starts. So I started to see some common themes of what all the schools I was interested in required. Some required subject tests, which don't even exist anymore. Most required extra supplemental essays, and sometimes they even had like really odd things. Like, I think Princeton made you submit a sample paper that you've written. If you can get all this sorted out before your summer starts, even if you haven't researched any of them in depth yet, you'll know what you need in a worst case scenario that you apply to all 20 or 30 of them, which please don't do that. That's actually insane, and it's gonna cost you so much money to do that. But you can get started on taking the SAT, getting rec letters if you need them, all that good stuff. So at this point, with your 20 or 30 schools, it's time to really narrow them down. Be realistic and ask yourself which ones are the best fit for you. Remember that after a point, the more schools you leave on your list, the less time you're gonna have to make every single application as perfect as it can be. So if you wouldn't be absolutely excited to go there based on your research, don't bother applying. Some schools are binding where you have to go there if you apply early. So if that's not your number one choice school, apply regular for those ones, but most schools you'll be able to apply that early November date, so it's important to get as much as you can done before then, especially if the school is rolling admissions or something like that, where they kind of consider you a higher priority if you apply earlier. And the more schools you apply to early, the better chance you have of getting into those schools, because you can reapply regular if you get deferred or don't get in the first time. So don't procrastinate. You really want to give yourself the best odds that you can have for this. So one other thing that I didn't exactly put on this spreadsheet, but I included in my notebook, was going to the faculty page of these departments and learning about the research they were doing for the programs that I was interested in. Not only did this help me write a lot of my why do I want to go here supplemental essays, which by the way, all of this research helps with, It makes them much more unique and specific, but it also helped me figure out what I wanted to research in college, what actually sounded interesting to me. Obviously, you might not be interested in research, but it can still help to learn a lot more about the faculty and the different programs your department might offer. Like, is it common to do study abroad and get that international experience? Do they have entrepreneurship opportunities? Stuff like that. Also, let me just tell you something. I included Blue Lab Woven Wind in my Michigan supplemental essay because I had done a really large deep dive into all the project teams that Michigan offered, and that one, like, specifically really aligned with my interests. And now, guess what? I'm the application lead of that project team, and it's been one of the coolest things I've been involved with on campus. So do your research, even if it's boring in the moment, because it can help prepare you for what you actually want to be doing in college and help you find opportunities at the school you're going to be going to before you even step foot on campus. So anyway, why didn't I apply to Harvard? Why did I only apply to 2 of the Ivies when so many people have the opinion that I should have applied to them all? Well, that's because they weren't exactly the right fit for me. They weren't exactly known for their chemical engineering departments. Their focus wasn't on research that was super compelling to me or that I could see myself doing. And ultimately, I just didn't see myself being a good fit at those schools. It's really important not to get so caught up in the rankings of schools. That is not anywhere close to the most important factor of the schools that you pick. Yes, it can be important in getting a job in the future, but you really want to be picking schools that you could see yourself going to and that have good opportunities within the departments you're interested in. I've also had people devastated in the comments that I didn't pick UC Berkeley or UCLA over U of M. And let me just tell you, sometimes the financial reasons are reason enough to pick one school over another. It's just kind of the sad fact of reality. Either of the UCs would have cost me almost $300K to attend for all 4 years, while for University of Michigan, I'm an in-state student, and I also got a whole bunch of incredible scholarship opportunities, which made tuition free for me. So it was $300K versus basically getting paid to go to school for 4 years. Also, I could stay close to home going to Michigan, be closer to my friends and my family. That can be a big factor too. And ultimately, Michigan's opportunities, whether it's the research that I get to do in their chemical engineering department or the amazing facilities they have for project teams, I know I wouldn't go anywhere else for my undergrad. And I was so confident in that decision because of all the research I had done that led to that point. So that's why this process can be so important in deciding where you go to school. And I hope this video helped you develop that list of schools you want to be applying to based on the factors that actually matter to you. Remember, rank is not everything. It is one of the less important factors to consider. And things like climate, location, opportunities you'll have there, and ultimately financial aid can be more make or break. I wish you guys the best of luck in developing this list and powering through that college application season. I know it can be really stressful and scary because the future is so unknown, but that's also what makes it so exciting. Please enjoy your senior year of high school, have fun, and make some great memories. If you do your research, you will end up where you belong and you will be happy at your school. And if not, then you can always transfer. But you got this. It'll be awesome. Just get a head start on those essays. They do really add up. But thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out those links in the description for $50 off Prep Scholars online courses. And good luck on those applications. You got this.